meeting of the Colleyville Planning.
access also be provided within the development.
So where's the fence? It's on the yellow part there, yeah. That's
Yeah, so the yellow is some of the flowers, but this type of fence here would be along these property boundaries.
So just curious, so it looks like the folks on the other side of Holly Lane, the west side, have access to that open area, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yep, it would be open.
As we went through this, so there was there was a fencing exhibit even that showed, has all that been remedied, rectified, whether I felt like there was.
Yeah, all of this. So here's the grand entrance along John McCain, and this would be the wall there. All of this in the front would be open. Here's the sidewalk, and there's going to be gates so they can get up there. Just another rendering of that.
And there were some fencing concerns, like the northwest part of the property that was kind of.
Yep,
falling
all that's
off.
been addressed. On the color exhibit, there's kind of a fencing schedule up on the top.
Mm-hmm.
These are the different elements. A lot of it's going to be walls, maybe not complete walls. So this one has, I think, 6 feet of wall. Here's an entire 8-foot wall section. This has, looks like 2.5 feet of solid with wrought iron on the top. Some of it will be the ornamental like this, but it's all outlined where those will be along the perimeter. But pretty much every side has some type of fencing. So this is an example. The yellow is your 6-foot ornamental fence with masonry columns, which is what we were looking at before. This one has 2.5-foot masonry with 3.5 ornamental iron on top for the green, and then this would be 7-foot total height, 5 foot as masonry wall, 2 feet on top of that. And that's the iron fence along the back. And then there's a pipe fence there that will be replaced. So we've got all of this. It's all been worked out with the neighbors. And so very detailed. All of these types of exhibits remain unchanged from when the council saw it back in December. Just those first few slides that I showed at the beginning were the only changes from then to now.
Having it all memorialized in the PD document, is that, or the PUD document, is that as far as all the adjacent property landowner agreements? I know that there's the one for Tryon Court property owners. Do we have them for all the other, like the drainage easement coming through this one property, or?
Yes, there's language in, so if you were to look at your packet, let's see. So there's one statement that says the project will complete grading to bypass the current discharge location in the floodplain, generally in conformance with the concept shown on the attached drainage bypass exhibit. That was this exhibit that we looked at. So that's language in the PUD. Storm sewer installation and connection shall be made to drain the area west of Lot 33, which is on the west side, which is the area west of Holly Lane, into a new drainage system to be installed along Holly Lane. So we've made those adjustments in the language as well, based on the agreements.
And that property owner is happy with that.
Right. It is because of this that they rescinded their opposition.
Good.
Yeah, so we feel that we've documented everything correctly in the PUD, and so we're very comfortable. And we've got these exhibits as well that will become part of the PUD. But yeah, so this would be the plan that we're considering tonight for 34 lots.
That lot 22 and 23, that had to make people feel good over there, right? I mean, those are nice, big screen. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah,
that was
one of the changes that they accommodated even before. This was lot 23, lot 22, whereas when we saw it, Well, actually,
So,
looks like they accommodated that fairly early. But yeah, that was to get those a little bit larger so that they were more in line with the 2-acre lots.
so I caught some of that discussion when the city council looked at this, you know, when watching it online. There was some discussion about, you know, continuity of the overall development, lot sizes kind of within a certain range, so that there wasn't a, you know, half-acre to 2-acre type of situation. But I don't recall, what I'm curious about though, was there any discussion like that, the little mini court in the very front, when was, you know, what purpose does that serve? Was there any discussion about, because I don't recall it, and I didn't watch the whole thing, redoing that to make those lots more in line? I know they're close, but they're 26,000 square feet versus the 30, which I know they were trying to get to. So was there any discussion or concern around that section and changing it or doing anything there?
No, I think they were comfortable with this all along, primarily because it is
Right, it's the
abutting the
road.
street.
Yeah, okay.
It's not directly abutting a house here. Now, what they were able to do for these two properties, you see this as the light green, the same color as these other open space lots. So that's a true open space lot. It doesn't back directly to the backyard of somebody's property. And in fact, I think this will be conveyed over to the Tanglewood neighborhood, so they will have complete access and control of that property.
But there's really no opposition from that side of the fence.
Right. They came into agreements fairly early on, and those remained in place. I actually think this is probably a better situation. You know, these are fairly narrow and quite deep. We would have 3 backyards along this street, whereas with this design, we only have the 2
Or
backyards.
2 if they got rid of one. I think they'd have to get rid of a lot to make them over. But anyways, that's fine, as long as, I just was more curious about that, because there was a lot of discussion on the Holly side, not as much on that side.
Yeah. They were comfortable with it, and so there really wasn't a lot of conversation up here.
And then as a reminder, any future development to the house that's staying, that would require a whole nother discussion and voting.
If this is approved, you guys are making a recommendation, but if this gets approved next week at the council, this plan becomes the effective plan. And so any changes to this plan, let's say that somebody in the future wants to subdivide this into 2 lots, that would require an amendment to this PUD because we're adding lots to the plan, to the neighborhood. They would be limited to the 34 lots and the 34 lots only. The regulations are all lots must be 30,000 square feet and larger, with exception to those 2 lots up front. We've tried to make sure that it was very detailed enough in here that everybody knew that this was what was expected, and any change to this would have to come back for an amendment.
Okay. Any other questions?
Great.
Bang that gavel again.
No, I guess
Dang it.
well, you can.
Just do it.
Getting close.
So we've adjourned the work
Yeah,
session.
We've adjourned the work session.
Great.
used this last week?
All it takes is, one false meeting. look into it. I'm gonna have to try that. I'm gonna have to try it.
Yeah, so it's, I think it's on, so get the methylene or maple extract.
Yeah.
And I think it's got the recipe on the back.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, go ahead, try it. Splash some Mexican vanilla in there too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, there's one.
There's one.
I'm gonna have
Use both hands. Gavel with both hands.
This might be the only time I ever get to bake.
Away from the microphone.
I do every time. Popping cool one back here. This is every day. To do that, sorry.
Sure.
All right, we'd like to welcome everybody to the February 11th, 2019 City of Colleyville Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. We'll call the meeting to order and take a roll call. Commissioner Moore,
Here?
Commissioner Holt,
Here.
Commissioner Cook,
Here.
and Commissioner Elms is here. If you would, please rise for the invocation and stay standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Heavenly Father, we take a moment this evening to thank you for the blessings in our lives. In particular, let us remember how truly fortunate those of us are who have the opportunity to call Colleyville home. We pray for honest and open information sharing, discussion, and decision-making. We ask you to guide us with right thought, wisdom, as we make recommendations and decisions that potentially impact the future of our great city. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the first item on our agenda, citizen comments, presentations regarding items not on the agenda. Anyone here wish to speak on any items that are not on the agenda, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll move on. So item number 2A, we have consideration of a zoning change from R40 single family residential zoning district and AG agricultural zoning district to PUDR planned unit development residential zoning district on lot 1R1 and 1R2, block 1 of the Bear Creek Plantation, located at 1312 John McCain Road and 7309 Holly Lane North, case ZC 18-019. Staff?
All right, thank you. Ben Briner, Director of Community Development. So this is an item that has been before the commission before, back in July of last year. Most recently, this was in front of the City Council for decision back in December. It did require a supermajority vote. There was opposition of more than 20% from surrounding property owners. There was a motion to approve, but the motion failed by not getting the requisite 6 affirmative votes for a supermajority. Since that motion was held, there were some minor changes made to the plan, as well as some opposition that was rescinded. And at last week's City Council meeting, the City Council basically acted to reconsider this case again based on those changes. As part of their decision, they wanted it to come back before the Planning and Zoning Commission one last time for a final presentation and a new recommendation from the commission. So what I'm going to do is just really go through real quickly the changes from when you saw it and then from when the City Council saw it last and what we are looking at today. So when the commission heard it last, it was July 9th of 2018. And on this plan, it identified 36 lots for single-family use and then 9 lots for open space. And so this was recommended for approval by the commission. There were some modifications that were part of that motion. It did go to the City Council. Those elements, as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission, were incorporated into their plan. However, at the December 4th, 2018 meeting, the plan that the City Council was looking at was for 35 lots. They had removed 1 lot. Another change that they did was the pond along Holly Lane was incorporated as part of an open space lot as well. So this included 10 open space lots, that being the additional open space area. Like I stated, the motion failed. It did not get the required 6 votes based on the supermajority requirement. But since that time, they've gone back and made a few other minor changes, and so I'll just go through these real quick and then show the latest plan. First off, they did remove 1 additional lot, so we're now looking at 34 single-family residential lots. With the removal of that 1 lot, they redistributed that area to create a minimum of 30,000 square foot for all lots within the subdivision except for 2 that are in the southeast corner. Those are approximately 26,000 square feet each. Additionally, they removed the pond that was originally shown along Holly Lane, but that area will remain as an open space lot. And so it's just the pond is removed. They do have an exhibit of improvements that they will make to that lot, and that will be owned and maintained by the Homeowners Association. They also are doing some minor regrading on adjacent lots. One is for a new drainage system to be installed to collect water from the properties on the west side of Holly Lane. and then some grading to realign a tributary or whatever, to redirect it to go into the pond that will remain on the large open space area to the north in the northern portion. And so those are the improvements that, or the grading that will be done, and it's fairly minor in both cases. The PUD document itself was revised accordingly. Really, it was just correcting lot references and then identifying those, I call them drainage improvements, but just the grading that will occur, or the pipe that would be used to collect some of that water. Everything else that was presented previously, all other conditions, regulations, agreements, exhibits, all of that will remain unchanged otherwise. And so this is the latest and greatest plan. Again, it'd be for 34 single-family residential lots with 10 open space lots. This is the new plan for the open space lot along Holly Lane. It will be open on the street side, and then the fencing will be along the back side where it's adjacent to the residential lots. And we do have the engineering plans, if we need to refer to them, this with the preliminary plat, the preliminary drainage, the utility layout for water and wastewater. This is an exhibit identifying some of the preliminary grading, if we need to refer to that. And this is an exhibit that identifies how they'll do that grading to redirect the tributary to get to the pond. This again will be included as part of the PUD document. We did send our notices out to surrounding property owners again to identify tonight's meeting as well as next week's meeting. This was also increased in the distance from 200 feet to 500 feet. So there will be additional properties noticed. At this time, we've not received any response back from that mailing in writing or through telephone calls. And in summary, so staff does recommend approval. And as you can see, at the July 9th meeting, there was a recommendation for approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission with some modifications. And then at the December 4th meeting, City Council did make a motion to approve, but it failed. It did not receive the 6 votes needed for supermajority. What I failed to put on here, though, was last week's action. So they did motion to reconsider the case, but then they subsequently remanded it to the commission so that you guys can look at it one last time. So that's real quickly the brief summary of everything. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. I do have lots of other exhibits if we need to get to them, but these are the changes. They're fairly minor, but they're the changes from what the council saw last.
Okay. Any questions of staff at this point?
Did I hear it mentioned that the minimum home size was 4,300 square feet?
Yes, that's right. So if you go to the PUD document, there was some conversation during this entire process that is now standing at 4,300 square feet minimum house size for any lot.
Okay, and that's what is in the PUD right now?
Right, it's currently in the PUD, that is, yes.
Any other questions? I guess we'd like to request that the applicant come forward to speak on the case. Curtis, please state your name and address for the record, please.
Curtis Young, Sage Group, 8003 Jefferson, here in Colleyville. As been recapped, been a long and winding road, but we're hopeful that we're getting to the end here. We've had extended discussions with the neighbors on the west, and they had some issues that were really unrelated to us, but we've offered to help them on the drainage and some other things. you know, we used to have a lake there, they requested that lake be removed, and so we've adjusted that and a few other things. But anyway, be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions? Doesn't look like we have any questions.
Great, thank you.
Well, because I remember last time you were up here, we talked about drainage and not being an issue, and then some of the homeowners on the west side were still concerned about it. Just kind of, I don't know if you have anything you can show or talk a little bit more about how that was remedied and.
Well, we're still promising to put a drain across Holly Lane to pick up a low area between two of the homes there, and that'll just go into our internal underground situation. There will still be, of course, everything will still drain, and it'll go down to the floodplain. We're still building the lake down in the open space in the floodplain, and we've agreed to make sure that the normal water elevation is 2 feet below natural ground there. Basically, the difference there is that to the west of us, there's in the subdivision there's kind of a valley that goes up that fills up with water when Bear Creek rises. Kind of looks like water is going backwards. And Rich is here to talk about it if you want to know the details. But basically, we're making some adjustments there to inhibit that a little bit there. But all the drainage is basically the same as it was. The lake was primarily aesthetic before.
The lake on Holly Lane.
The lake on Holly was primarily aesthetic before, but you know, some people wanted it, some people didn't, but I think the consensus was that they wanted to remove it, so that's what we've done.
And the homeowners on the west side that were concerned about the drainage issues are no longer, at least who have expressed it through a letter, are no longer concerned.
I believe that that's part of the reasons why they rescinded their opposition.
Okay, all right. No, I'm good.
Okay.
The diversion of water into the pond, you guys have looked at all of that from a flood study standpoint, and we feel like got a good hydraulic solution there.
Rich Diott, 112 Keystone in South Lake. Yes, the bottom line is this really doesn't affect the floodplain. It's really just to direct the low flow rather than going through one. We're going to make it go down a different way. It's a really simple fix. What happens is the creek rises, the floodplain inundates it, and when water's at a certain level, it just flows up that entry and then up in there to their yards. Now everybody sees drainage because they're looking at it a lot more. And when they called me and told me water was flowing backwards, I said, this job has everything. But I went out, I understood exactly what was going on. We see it's just how the floodplain inundates. It does, the work we're doing will have no effect on the water surface of the 100-year or the 50 or 10 or whatever. So it's all pretty easy. We won't be, we may be impacting some waters of the U.S., but it'll be such a small amount that we'll be under thresholds. We'll do that through a pre-construction notification to the Corps. So it's all going to be easy.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Thanks, Curtis. All right. So let's open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. Request any citizens that want to speak for or against the case to come forward. Did you fill out a card? Okay. After you come forward, fill out a speaker card, but state your name and address for the record.
My name is Don Bodick. I live at 7208 Trinon Court in the Tanglewood addition. Curtis and I and Bert have worked on this thing for a long time. We probably had 10, 15 meetings. And we agreed to everything back when it was probably at 36 lots. Now it's changed to 34. One of the things that one of the council members objected to was the lots were not consistent. They were big, small, medium. That has been rectified on the west side. On our side, it didn't. We have two that are 26,000. That could be rectified really easy without any loss of income to Bert. Dirt's worth dirt. So instead of having 3 lots, you could have 2 lots. make them 41,210 feet each. And that would make the addition really uniform. And I don't know why they won't do that. They should. And I'm making the recommendation that y'all make the recommendation to them to do it. And the second thing is there's screening all around the neighborhood on Holly Lane on our side, because we have 14 backyards facing our homes. And I don't know if y'all have ever been to our addition. We have some very nice homes there. Mine's the very first one, not the first one, the second one that faces, and it's going to be closest to the neighbors. They gave us some land and a wall, but they forgot to put any kind of screening, and it's the only area along the Venemeyers and my wall that there's no screening there of any kind of landscaping. It's an 8-foot wall. We don't need bushes. We need trees. On their side, we'll landscape our side, but we're going to do the same thing on all around the addition on the Tanglewood side. So I would like that to be enforced. That's it. And everything else I'm in favor of.
Question, when you say they met with you as an individual or as a homeowners association?
All, individually, all together, many times. Okay. Many times.
And what's the issue with the trees versus bushes? Just so I can
well, I mean, they're putting up an 8-foot wall behind my home and the Venemeyer's home. Right. Okay, the other walls are 6 feet with 2 feet of iron. We elected not to do that, but we'll be still seeing rooftops and everything else pretty close, and so. What we negotiated was landscaping, shrubs and screening facilities all the way along, but they've got to do ours. And I'd like trees along our wall on their side, because we will do it on our side, but we'd like it on their side.
So that's with the picture that's up there, the light green, I'm assuming you're talking about the two houses on the west side there.
My home, I think it's lots 4 and 5 that back up to it. Mm-hmm. And so the Venemeyers would be 6 and 7.
Well, it's like 5 and 6, 7, 8, what I'm looking at. But
it's that little area that jerks out 25 feet.
The one with the flying saucer on it, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to highlight, if you look at the screen, the red dot, that's your house,
yes.
I think?
Yeah.
So that green space, if I'm remember this
right.
correctly, the wall will be on the west side of that green space. So
25 feet past, okay. Yeah.
And so you're asking for trees on the other side of that wall, not in the...
Right. I'll landscape everything on my side, and the Venemeyers will too.
But is that going to be individual homeowners' decision to landscape that, or is the homeowners association?
Well, it's going to initially be deeded over to the homeowners, Tanglewood, and then Tanglewood has agreed to deed it over to us individually and take care of it, because they don't want to take care of it.
So any improvements so right now, until you, I guess what I'm asking is, unless you as an individual homeowner landscape it, it's just going to be green grass.
Right. But if you'll go look at my yard, it's not green grass. It's decked out completely in landscape.
But that's what it will be. You'd have to landscape it as
that's right, on my side, on my side.
On your side.
Yeah. Okay. What I'm asking for is on the other side, the west side of the wall, to at least have trees all along there.
And when you say all along, what in your mind is all along? Every 30 feet, every?
Probably, I mean, you need to be in between about 25, 30 feet, yeah. I would think, yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Do you have any cards, ma'am? Anyone else like to speak at the public hearing? All right, seeing no one coming forward, I'll close the public hearing. Oh, wait, hold on. Should I ask the applicant if they want to come back and speak before I
I
close the
think that
public
would,
hearing?
well, you can close the public hearing and they can still get up and speak.
Okay.
Either way.
Curtis, would you like to rejoin us?
Well, Don just asked me not to get pissed off at him. I will try not to. We spent countless hours, days, weeks, months, working with Tangwood and came to an agreement. There is still a 25-foot landscape buffer along the entire thing. The only difference was they wanted some of it to be deeded to them as opposed to part of Oak Alley. So we have agreed to do that. And at the time, they said, don't worry about it, we'll landscape it, whatever. And they, instead of the wall on the property line, which is where it would normally go, we agreed to move the wall to our side of that 5-foot landscape easement. So I just think it's a little rich to be now coming and asking for additional things beyond that.
The current PD, I mean, do you guys have some kind of minimum tree planting per lot kind of thing?
There's requirements in there for the properties to be fully landscaped, you know. But the landscape buffer that we have everywhere else, except where in the properties that we're deeding to else, we have requirements, a tree every 30 feet and understories and all that stuff. So when we get down to where the wall juts back a little bit, there's an area where it juts back where we're only giving them 10 feet. And the 15-foot, the remaining portion of the landscape easement is on our side. We're fully landscaping that 15 feet. The purpose of the 10 feet was to give them a little bit more room to grade their side of the wall there. And they were going to redo the landscaping on that side too. So everything we're proposing is consistent with our agreement with them months ago.
But, so to what you're saying, your point is that when you look into the legend, they have the landscape easement. All of that area, you are doing some tree planting along every 30, whatever feet you just said. That
Originally, there was a 25-foot consistent landscape easement all along the boundary, okay? That remains. The only difference is that they requested a portion of that, especially next to those two homes that are side to the property line. They're only 10 feet off the property line. No fault of ours, that's just where they were built. And that they said, okay, we need a little bit more space there. So as part of the negotiation, the solution that we came across was, okay, instead of that landscaped easement of 25 feet remaining on our side of the wall, we'll just move the wall to 25 feet in. So we'll put that entire landscape easement on your side of the wall. And since it's on your side, it'll be like it's in your yard, and therefore it's appropriate for you to landscape it and maintain it and whatever. We don't want our landscape maintenance people or our homeowners coming in your yard to maintain it. That made no sense at all. So that's how we got to where we are now.
The discussion about the 26,000 square foot lots at the corner, we talked about it a little bit in pre-session, but just kind of tell us the thought process around that corner.
There's enough room there for 3 30,000 square foot lots. What we did there, because it's right up front and it's at our entry, is we did the little eyebrow of a cul-de-sac there so that the homes would be turned and be kind of fronting. We thought it would be it's a design element, really. We thought it would be a better frontage, you know, looking at the entry. And of course, we got wrought iron along John McCain. So as you drive across there, instead of seeing just the side of one house, you're going to see kind of this court with 3 houses. And as we know, the front of the houses is generally the most attractive and presentable side of it or whatever. So it's really just a design feature, and everyone's been good with it until now. You know, it reminds me of kids a little bit. You give one kid something, the other one's going to want it. You know, everyone was fine with it until we, you know, removed a lot across the way, and it's a little bit, you know, disheartening.
So for lot 1, where is the front of the house facing? In your design?
It'll face toward the entry, but the point is that 2 and 3 kind of turn the corner there a little bit. And so you get this kind of courtyard where you have the three fronts of the homes, and they, together, kind of face the entry on that. So if that courtyard went, that court street cul-de-sac, if you will, I call it a court, but it's kind of like a cul-de-sac ball there. If that were to go away, then you'd have three longer lots, just like the ones to the north of there. And against John McCain, you'd have, you know, the house would be moved up further, closer to the front, like the other ones will be. And, you know, it's a design feature that we thought would look more attractive to the streetscape along John McCain and as you come in the entry there. So it's really not getting another lot. It's not trying to make the lot smaller. It's just, you know, utilizing the same amount of space to make a nicer looking entry.
And so what you were saying is if, let's, because I had questions about that, and I brought that up in the thing. So I'm not suggesting you do this, but if you were to get rid of that court, what you're stating is you would have 3 lots of 30,000 square foot or large, you know, that look similar to lots 4, 5, 6, for example.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the entry concept that you have, I mean, you definitely, I understand what you're saying. You want to play off the front of those houses because that's really the front door to this whole thing, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And just back to the whole landscape easement, I kind of agree you can't have it both ways. Either you request the land to be part of your yard, or you don't and you make it similar to what you're doing with the other. So that's my kind of opinion on that. Yeah. If he wants to have that and you've made that agreement that basically you're deeding it over to those 2 properties, then I don't necessarily think you have to do both.
Yeah, and I'm not saying there won't be trees in the backyard. I mean, these are gonna be multiple $1-million-dollar homes. I mean, people will landscape their yards extensively, just like Don did on.
Right.
I mean, he's got a beautiful landscape yard now. I mean, these people will do the same thing. There will be trees back there. They'll probably want to screen, because their whole, you know, their yard will be closer to his house than his house is to theirs. So, you know.
Yeah, and if you, yeah, and I guess the point is if you plant it, if there was some kind of requirement to plant trees in that common open space, or that's not common open space on the east side, but then you really can't landscape that or take care of it after the fact.
Exactly.
All right.
Any other questions for the applicant?
You know, I already asked you, never mind, I asked you in the pre-session about any discussion about that court and those 3 lots, and it doesn't sound like there had been prior to tonight. So, okay. I'm done.
Anything else?
Doesn't look like it.
Thank you.
So now I should have closed the public hearing there, right?
Either
That's
way.
good, okay. So, having heard the presentation of staff, the applicant, and citizens' comments, what is the pleasure of the commission?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve ordinance 0-18-2056.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance as presented. Have a vote. Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Commissioner Holt?
Aye.
Commissioner Cook?
Aye.
And Commissioner Elms votes aye. Motion passes 4-0. That's the last item on our agenda. We are adjourned.